Greetings, everyone. This is the last year or the last call of 2023. All right, that sounded like the end of the world there for a second. It's the last year, right? Last call for people-centered internet, all right, for 2023, and I'm delighted that we could join. I've got my red vest on for the celebrations of the season. I've got Christmas mouse, all right, which is a little decoration from childhood that went on doorknobs, but is now gracing the this scene here in Chapel Hill. And let me just start off by giving some thanks for the people who make this possible. Right, we have Lynn Wells on. Lynn, you're just back from Puerto Rico, I think. Right,
I am.
PCI mission, all right? Perhaps, was it PCI related?
It was.
All right. Lynn, I want to recognize Casey Komlosky. Every Sunday on the West Coast that we have one of these calls, Casey wakes up early before her family is up, right? And, gets this call going. And I greatly appreciate her participation in the PCI Guests and Speakers Committee and her, stalwart support of this call every other week as we go through. So, Casey, thanks so much for all you do.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Ben Konsinski is a member down in Atlanta, and he is a great contributor, has contributed guests, just like everyone else has. So we're delighted, right, that he is part of this. And Schneider Alfonso, the lubricant of all things PCI, right? I mean, he is a contributor to this team, but he is also an enabler of so many other good things that happen, because of his stewardship for the community and its activities. So, Schneider, where do we find you today?
In my hometown, that it's Cucuta in Colombia. Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, we're glad that you're home for the holidays. All right.
Exactly.
It's probably delicious, right? We wish we could taste, where you are. All right. I know at least I would. So thanks to the entire committee. All right. And, for everything that they do. So we're going to have, a retrospective of year past, right? What's, ahead. And there's a lot to be thankful for. We had a lot of good guests, right? And, let's talk about that, and let's talk about what we actually would like to bring forward in the new year. Topics. It's going to be the 50th anniversary of the Internet year in 2024, which is great. Our co-founder Vince Cerf is certainly, we're very proud of the work that he did, and we want to celebrate that. So, Lynn, your camera is off, but I would value hearing from you for a second about what you just experienced in Puerto Rico. What's going on? We've been doing a lot in Puerto Rico over the last year. So just catch us up.
So I had three objectives in this trip. I've done there for about a week. And one was an ongoing venture to try to understand the impact of the federal funding down there. And the numbers vary, but by most accounts, between 24 and 35, there's going to be about $60 billion flowing into Puerto Rico, largely in infrastructure and disaster relief projects. And so my question was, okay, fine. What accounts are these coming from? When do they expire? Like the disaster relief accounts expire after 7 years, and so on and so forth. But most importantly, what difference do they make? And I have to tell you, I was disappointed in this part of it, in the sense that one of the three dashboards, I've been able to, because I have a government ID card, I was able to get behind the government firewalls where they're looking at what the actual numbers are. And one dashboard said the amount of dispersed federal funds for disaster relief is about $16.8 billion. Okay. Another dashboard said it's 21.2. Another one dashboard said it's 29.5. And so on a base of $16 billion, you've got a variance of $13 billion in just how much money has actually been spent so far. And so there's a long way to go to get the numbers straight to figure out just exactly where the funds are going. So that's a work in progress, and keep working on that. The second thing was on workforce development, because there is not enough capacity in the island to absorb all this much money. There's not enough capacity to write the grant proposals to take it. And so what happens is off-island companies keep getting the grants and they don't develop the capacity in the island. And there's also not the capacity in the government to write those funding opportunities effectively. So there are several disconnects there, but and we actually have some solutions for those. We found some people who are working on that, and we're proceeding on that. And then a number of projects, and this is one where we actually had some success. One of the really exciting things is the use of voice bots in areas like disaster relief, funding requests, and permitting, where instead of having to go through reams and reams and reams of conflicting city and state and federal rules, you can use combinations of AI plus Spanish language voice bots to allow people to file the applications just by calling them in. And for many of you who don't know, the one example of this is the London parking ticket example from 2017, where a teenager, and many of you heard this, but if you haven't, apologies, wrote a chatbot to appeal parking tickets. And basically, you talk to the parking ticket, and talk to the chatbot, and it would have you fill out, where, when, why, but then why are you appealing it? And then fill out an appropriate bureaucratic form and send it in. In 2 years, they successfully appealed 160,000 parking tickets. And so this is the model we're using here, is how can you just make life easier for people, because permitting is an ongoing problem in Puerto Rico, as is filing disaster relief claims. So there's some really, really good NGOs that are working, Sembrando Sentido and the League of Cities, that are working at community level to try to understand what a difference it makes, not just was the bridge built, but what difference does the bridge make. And that is where I see the real opportunities coming in the next round of this. Is we'll keep plugging away at the federal funds. That's going to take some more work on the side of the federal government people up here. We're working on developing the capacity. That's going to take a long time, but I think there's some opportunities from fairly quick wins in the individual community-based projects. Over.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for that update. Mark, your hand is up.
Yeah, just what is the population of Puerto Rico?
So the population is around 3.2 million. Some say it's as low as 2.9. But the troubling thing is that in 2006, which is when the recession started. I mean, it wasn't a recession. The recession didn't start with Irma and Maria in 2017. The recession started a decade earlier, after the subsidies for the pharmaceutical industry went away. It was 3.8. So they basically lost, on the order of 25% of the population in the past 15 years. And the trick is, how do you stop that and turn it around? So right now it's right around a little over 3 million.
And my thought is Singapore in any way a comparable? In other words, they had a very small population of I think less than that, and they made huge strides.
So in 2018, I was with a delegation from Puerto Rico that went to Singapore. And the question was, how do you run an island well? So we had a fabulous week there. And the conclusion was, the way you run an island well is you execute 20 to 30 year strategic plans with a highly competent, non-corrupt government and a stable political environment. And the Puerto Ricans said, got it, not us. Now what? And so There are these structural issues that just need to be addressed. Now, people like Gloria Vizcasillas, who runs Echar Palante, which is an NGO devoted to entrepreneurship, have truly done extraordinary work over a decade, 11 years actually, in building entrepreneurial training in the island. She's got 10,000 K through 12 teachers, almost over 1,000 university professors, several hundred community leaders who have been certified. You have certificates on teaching people how to do entrepreneurship. And that's fine. Now, the next thing is how do you turn that into productive businesses? And so that's kind of where the focus is right now. So anyway, the analogy is Singapore actually, I think, is a little bit bigger than Puerto Rico in terms of population. And they've got many more expats. I think they're around 5 million with the expat population. But just the political environment is so different. And one of the problems in Puerto Rico is that there is very little career civil service. And so when there's a change of party in the gubernatorial election, there's essentially a frontal lobotomy in the political system.
Yeah.
And you start all over again.
I think that you would probably find that, closer on path to what you're suggesting, Mark, for, a Singapore-like, type of growth is taking place in Bermuda. They're starting to rise vertically, all right, in, some of the, more densely populated parts of the island. There's a scarcity of, land, right? And, it's functionally beginning to do some of the things that Singapore does in terms of being a go-between between economies. So you'll see all the major consulting companies have, high-rise offices, all right, and lots of people in Hamilton. So, all right,
Thank you, Kevin.
it's changed the characteristics of, what it used to look like.
That's interesting. Bermuda has at one point the highest per capita net worth in the world. The not net worth, but I guess GDP per person because of all the investment. But I know some people in Puerto Rico who went there because of the federal tax rebates. They paid a lot less federal tax, maybe I don't know, half or nothing, and they got very wealthy and they did very well. And they were just people who moved to Puerto Rico for that reason. And they live in a fancy part of Puerto Rico, et cetera. But they added a lot of value to the island. And so is that strategy, the tax strategy and the bringing importing people, is that part of what you're considering, Lynn?
So several things. First of all, the population of Bermuda is 64,000. So it's a qualitatively different thing in the terms of size of the people. But in Puerto Rico, the tax advantages are very interesting. First of all, there is an increasingly active Gringo Go Home movement, where the Puerto Ricans are getting very resentful of the people off island who've come and made a lot of money on the tax breaks. That has not translated down into the Puerto Rican per capita income, GDP per capita, I believe, is lower than Mississippi. One of the critical issues is the ease of doing business index for Puerto Rico is, I think, 52 out of the 50 states plus the District of Columbia plus Puerto Rico. There are just all sorts of, this is one of the reasons for focusing on the permitting and the tax, using AI and voice bots. There are so many bureaucratic impediments. I went to a government tech conference last Tuesday where the head of the GSA equivalent in Puerto Rico had an example of how long it took to get the 7 chops required on a simple form, which was in months. And they've taken a lot of steps now to automate it. But anyway, so I think there's something on the order of a 40% poverty rate in Puerto Rico. In the vast majority of the income comes into 5 of the 78 metropolitan areas, and of the remaining 73, in some cases, or over 50% of the children live in poverty. So it's a very unequal slice of the pie there. And it's true. People have made a lot of money. It turns out, for example, 43, 44, 45, some of that % of the Puerto Rican economy is manufacturing. People think it's tourism. It's not. Tourism is in the single digits. So it's mainly manufacturing, especially pharmaceuticals, and they're building an aerospace sector and the biomedicine technology. So there's some very good highlights there that could be leveraged. The trick is how you extend it to the population as a whole and extend it to the underprivileged parts of the island, not just the wealthy enclaves.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to pivot at this point. I'm going to bring up a recent conversation that I had with our new leader, Yasha Stein, for PCI. We had a good experience recently with a panel discussion, and we've actually had pretty good experiences with panel discussion. We'd like to do more panel discussions, right, in the future, but it was on a weekday. And, Yasha has a number of things that prevent him from being with the community on these calls on Sundays. So he has asked us to look at moving this call from Sunday to a weekday. And the day that we have in mind is going to be this time, the same kind of time that we have on Sunday, on Tuesdays, right, of the week. So if for any reason a large percentage of you have a conflict on Tuesdays, you should let us know. You can put something in chat, or you can communicate. But that is in principle one of the things we're likely to do in the new year, is to move from Sundays to Tuesdays to increase participation, to broaden the number of people who are capable of being with us. So there is Casey, you're on camera. Fantastic. I'm glad to see you with us.
I always look like a Sith person from Star Wars.
But I like it.
The
All right.
morning.
Pay no attention to the droid. Okay.
Yeah, pay no attention to this camera view and angle.
There you go. I like it. That's good. So that's more than a piece of administrivia there. That's a structural change, right, for us. That is that's pending. So we have appreciated everyone who has been with us on Sunday, and it may turn out that somebody says, "Well, I can only join you on a Sunday," and we'll accommodate them. All right, but that's something that we're thinking about doing. We have some folks who have been regulars on the call. Let me call on Doug Hoolan. Doug, good to see you on the call today. How is the year ending? What do you see coming for us in the new year? All of you, I'll be calling on every one of you before we're done, right? So think about what you want to say. Hello, Doug.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been an exciting year. I met Gary Bowles through PCI, and of course we had the panel. And actually, panels are great. You get insights from a lot of different people.
You've hosted your own panels since then, my friend.
Yeah, and but Gary Bowles and Kyle and Vince Cert on the panel, and I thought on people-centered AI and where we can go from this technology, and of course the internet and AI somewhat interchangeably in some ways, but just meeting some incredible people at PCI, and What is the future happening? Kevin, and one thing I wanted to mention is, Kevin, just your leadership and bringing great speakers and great minds together to as part of PCI and the PCI leadership team. And so, Kevin, I want to thank you as well on that. Where's 2024? You mentioned the 50th year anniversary of TCP/IP. It's really exciting, and with Vince, being the the inventor of TCP/IP, or one of the inventors, how that can PCI can be promoted and amplify the leadership of the inventors of the internet 50 years ago, and what that means for where the internet and where AI is going next year and in the next few years. I still think that AI is going to be more impactful in the next 5 years than the internet has been in the last 50 years. And so excited to see where that goes. I've been working.
Are really pricey.
Yeah, and one last comment is I'm focusing around AI and healthcare, and 50% of people don't follow the treatment plan. 5% of all deaths are due to medical errors. How many of those are people taking the wrong medication at the wrong time, or not taking their medication, or how many of it's doctors prescribing the wrong medication? Whether they know or don't know, like 90% of people get cured from penicillin, but 10% are allergic to it, right? So, is that a medical error when someone takes the wrong medication and they die from it? And I just heard just yesterday, I was talking to a friend, and he said his cousin, just 2 years ago, they left in a sponge or a surgical gauze in the surgery. It's like, how can that be today? I mean, 10 or 20 years ago, I could understand, but they have checklists and everything else. And so this is just an example of, how easy it is to have medical errors. 60 million people die every year. And so it's estimated about 3 million of them die from medical errors that are needless. And so the question is how can we have a safer medical system, as well as I'm interested in road safety, and likewise, how can we use AI to help with road safety as well?
Keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road, right? My current
Absolutely.
recommendation relative to self-driving cars is you still need to pay attention, all right?
Right, and likewise, you need a clinician that knows what they're doing, and you need to pay
100%.
attention.
I mean,
Yeah.
Atul Gawande wrote the checklist manifesto when, okay?
Yeah, 10 years ago. Yeah.
And, the guy, that at the turn of the century was saying, wash your hands between patients. They say, you're an idiot, right? And that turns out to be the biggest medical innovation, that we've ever made, right? Is just not transmitting disease between patients, right?
Exactly.
I'm also intrigued, Doug, by the little things that they're doing in countries like Japan, where there's always been a fairly high error rate in. Let me change that. Not high, unacceptable error rate in administering the wrong medication to the wrong patient in a hospital setting, because so many things are going through the system that now the little cart that's coming from the pharmacy, that whatever is coming to the patient's bed has to match up to the tag on your wrist, right? And it's kind of like there's a handshake, right? That, yes, this is for this patient, has gotten the error rate down to negligible, percentages, which is great, right? Because it's.
Yeah, and actually, just an idea that popped in my head, because I was at an event where the doctor says he takes a picture of his patients and puts that in his chart. And so why not, okay, so you have a barcode, but maybe there should be a visual, like we take a picture of the patient's face. And so not only do you have the barcode, but you actually have okay, here's the patient, and their face pops up, and it's like, is that face matching the medication?
When my wife was in the hospital, they had a team consult outside of every patient's room every day for several hours. And they would say, we know this person, right? We know. And I found that really effective, right? That they were doing those team meetings. Doug, that's really exciting stuff, and you've been a good contributor to our meetings, and we thank you for being with us this past year, and we look forward to having with you this coming year.
Yeah, and I'm looking, and Tuesday works for me, so happy to switch to the Tuesday time
All right.
slot.
Lovely. All right. We have a new member, Suzanne Sienkiewicz. Suzanne, we're delighted to have you with us today, and you know, you've been a good contributor, even though you've just been with us for a little while. You've been active, so we're delighted to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been very inspirational. I give a tremendous amount of gratitude to all of you in the PCI leadership. And it all started with David Bray. And David Bray had invited me back when Vint had his people-centered economy meeting and in the Bay Area. And I went to that. And then soon after that, encouraged to collaborate with all of you, and that of course Vint serve, and I have been really moved. And then of course that went on to meeting all of you, and then further with Doug, and then Nextco Labs, and meeting amazing people there, and it's really helped me define more about AI, quantum, and its impact in synthetic biology, which is where my niche comes in, and its relationship to space and the internet, deep space, and where quantum and AI plays a significant role in preventing bio-inspired threats, and not only for good, but looking at the governance. And it's helped develop myself to become more aware of AI and quantum in the realm of bio-inspired use in pharmacology, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, communications, and really further developing the biology of everything. So I am just so grateful to all of you, because I can't get the nomad session we had out of my head, because it's really in the environment of nomadism, right? Just to expand yourself in all areas of medicine and health of the planet and of space. And so you've all really had an impact on my life and the direction in which I'm going. So I'm defining that. Tuesdays work great for me. Actually, I'd make the time anytime. So for you guys, because this is just really important work that everybody is doing. And as a really collective group, I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And best of luck as you take all those different paths, all right, and try to weave them, right? You're certainly in the world of multidisciplinary for sure. So delighted. I see Gary has joined us again after his recent presentation about communications in a variety of emergency and critical moments. Gary, glad you're back.
Thank you for inviting me. I was very intrigued after our last meeting. I learned a lot in a few minutes interacting with you guys, and figured I could use more education, so came back for more.
Well, welcome back. Right. I don't know how educational we are. It's certainly we have some intelligent life here. That's a good thing, right? We're glad to have you with us, my friend. Coco, good to see you. Right, another regular. Where do we find you today?
I thank you so much to be here again. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I I thanks all the team to give me again this opportunity to be here. So I think it's about 3 years since I'm with PCI.
Mm.
I learned much. I learned much in terms of management, because in Africa, when someone leave or always be near elder people, we always say near elder people we always learn
Mm.
wisdom. So according to our cultures, without wisdom I cannot do anything, and really I benefit much a lot of things from PCI. And either today uh, I'm driving many projects just from some idea I get from the meeting here.
Oh, good.
Many projects. Right now, I'm building the first e-learning network in Congo Brazzaville. The first one, the number one. It's never existed here before. So I'm building this, and I'm leading a project with one Ukrainian and some Indians,
Mhm.
called Innovators. That project is putting all together investors, startups, some organizations, coaches, and mentors to put all of them together so that some African startup can somehow be able now to do something better. And especially in terms of patenting. So I have really many things to share with PCI, and I learned them from PCI, and really PCI make me grow, and it's my time to make others to grow up as well.
Well,
So
Coco,
thank you so much.
we always are glad
Yes.
to have you and your perspective, right, from the African continent. It is it's a unique perspective, and we like it. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you
I
so much, sir.
I see Pablo Brewer with us. Hi, Pablo. Right.
Hello.
You joined the really good calls like this one. Glad
I'm
you're with us.
really looking forward to them being on Tuesday because it may actually be easier for me on Tuesday than Sundays.
That's what we're that's the vibe that we're getting from some folks. So especially, so that's good. How has the year been for you? What are you seeing coming up?
Oh, it's been an interesting year for those of you that aren't aware. I have continued my counter disinformation work with Sarah Jane Terp, and I guess you could say we were fortunate enough to be put at the center of a alt-right conspiracy theory. So the last few weeks have been really interesting. But we're moving forward with that. I think that there's going to be some really interesting things happening, like the rest of you with AI and with quantum. I think the AI is
becoming crazy.
be a little bit different than what most people are thinking. I actually foresee that there's going to be a huge there's going to be a huge increase in the use of AI. I think that there's going to be a huge slowdown in the progress of AI due to a number of factors. The two primary ones being that we're going to realize how many resources we're using doing all of this AI processing and how much it's hurting the environment. And the second one is, and we've already started to see this, the amount of the reaction from intellectual property holders realizing that AI has been trained with information that they own and they've not been compensated. So we've already seen the Recording Industry Association of America, the Motion Picture Association of America, authors, owners of websites like Reddit going, hey, wait a minute, you for using my stuff and I didn't get paid. So I think ChatGPT is probably going to be the last whole of internet trained AI, which is actually a good thing because I think we'll make much more useful, much more specialized AI. And one of the wonderful things about AI is if you've been following AI since inception, AI is a bit like Schrodinger's cat. We call it AI until we figure it out, and then it magically becomes not AI again. So if you look at expert systems from the 80s and 90s, or if you look at robotic vision used to be considered AI. And I look forward to the day where we no longer consider it AI. We get far less frustrating automated voice prompts when we call for help. And we can just ask the question instead of screaming, talk to an agent 15 times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some calls from, from time to time or observations that say, oh, if you use this, you'll be superhuman. And I said, yeah, until everybody's using it. And then that's the new norm, right?
Right.
And, you'll have to find something else, right, to, provide that, advantage, right? But, that's the way it always is, right? I mean, I was in the PC industry for a long time, and Intel, which is the dominant chip maker at the time, we had all these things that had to be external, a math coprocessor. Well, suck it in, right? AV codec, pull it into the main chipset, right? So the fact is, it eventually just becomes, all part of, the same common denominator.
But that's how we know we really get the technology right, when we
Yeah.
quit thinking of it as magic, and it becomes like the light in the refrigerator door, right? We open the door and it just works when the technology just works, and we no longer think about it as advanced technology. That's how we know we did
So
it.
I'll just, say two things about on the consumption part of AI. This reminds me a lot about the early days of streaming video, and compression algorithms solve the problem, right? Is that, it was really very resource intensive at the beginning, but eventually, once you train the data set, right, is you hope that there's a way to compress it and to do it with less energy, maybe it changes when you start to process some of it with quantum, if that ever, manifests anytime soon. Anyway, that's one. Second is that, yes, the litigiousness will slow down some of the data training set availability, but there will be no restrictions in other places on the planet where they don't really care as much, right? The biggest data training set on the planet is going to be in mainland China. And, if we would like our answers, right, to be trained by that population, then, we're going to make, broad swaths of our own information not accessible, but we'll be getting answers from places that we might not find quite as interesting. I just point out that there's a paradox in exercising, rights, and only about 7% of all human knowledge is available on the open web. The rest of it is behind a firewall or in a SCIF or in a proprietary place that you can't get to.
I think I don't disagree with that, except for the fact of where the training data is going to come from, if not the US. And I actually don't think it's going to be China. I think it's going to be India and Africa. And
I like those answers too, Pablo. Right?
One of the things that's really remarkable is going back to the new baseline is, imagine that AI could magically get you up to a 95% efficiency on whatever the problem is. You could make the argument that the US is at 92% and China's at 91% and Europe is, somewhere in the 90s. And then you go, the really interesting thing is what happens if now we give access to Africa and they go from a 30 or 40% efficiency to a 90% efficiency with the amount of resources that they have. I think that's the really exciting bit.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Coco would probably tell you, all right, that the number of times I've been on calls with him where the power went out, all right, is, yeah, it's large population to give, right, as long as they can stay connected, right? The infrastructure is still a little problematic, but Doug's going to help fix that.
That's right. No pressure,
right.
Doug.
All right, let me go to Bruce Parks. Bruce, you're a regular. Glad to have you with us. Anything you want to share with us as we wrap up the year?
Yeah, for myself, each Sunday morning is a graduate course for me. I mean, you really given the guests that you have here, given the people that participate, so much is brought to the table that I particularly feed upon. I mean, I'm just delighted to be exposed to the thoughts and the insights and the experience of so many people across so many spectrums of endeavors. So I'm always grateful for that.
Well, Bruce, we're delighted to have you with us. I suppose that's another lens that we could apply to this is it's the ongoing graduate seminar, right, for those who choose to opt in. Why
Yeah,
not?
it certainly is for me. I mean, like I said, there's so many people here with so much knowledge. I always gain something from it. So I'm always appreciative.
All right. Well, we're delighted to have you. Mark Prinsky, right? You have been a regular, sir, and we're glad that you're with us, today. You contribute often. You have a particular lens on, what you're trying to pursue. This year, for you, what you see coming ahead. We value hearing from you right now.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm happy to be here as well. I learn a lot from this group, and I think of the many groups that I participated in, this is one of the best for ideas that are meaningful to me. I focus on young people, and my focus is always on reframing and trying to see whatever the situation is differently. And the young people really, in my view, need to be reframed. So I'm focusing this year on both finishing the book, which is about reframing, which I did a first draft of, which got published, but it was really a first draft. So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to be going out and having conversations in the world that benefit young people wherever it's possible to do that. I'm promoting empowerment hubs around the world. I'd love to see those in businesses. I'd love to see those in any place that really wants to give young people the opportunity to move from learning in advance to accomplishment and impact. And that's my focus. So I had a question for this group, which I don't know if anybody, in addition to me, saw Scott Galloway's predictions for 2024. He gave a presentation, and I admire Scott for being a different thinker in a lot of the time. One of 2 points that he made really hit me hard. One is that the biggest one is that he says we are essentially, and these are his words, fucking over our youth. In other words, the wealth is being transferred away from young people. It used to go down to young people. It's being transferred away from young people up to the baby boomer generation at an enormous rate, so that the younger generations are suffering economically in ways that they might not have to. And that sort of opened my eyes to what are we doing to not help young people. So I thought that was really interesting, and I can't remember the other one, so I'm not going to go on with it. But I really like this group for bringing others and allowing me to bring other ideas into the discussion, because I'm a reframer and a contrarian. So thank you and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. Since we just a program note, since we try to make these video recordings available, to everyone, let's keep the language PG. All right, because even though that was a quote, Mark, the ability for a high school teacher, right, to use a recording like this, right, is dependent on us, staying, on a certain side of this. And I think that these are very useful conversations. So we don't want to, make them inaccessible because of language.
Fully understood. The interesting thing, and I refer here to my 18-year-old, that's really an unnecessary barrier that's in place, that language barrier of the teacher towards the kids, because the kids are all speaking that way.
I know, but still, it gets you removed from certain places.
No
So
question.
we just don't need it. All right.
I apologize.
No, you don't need to apologize. I'm just, like I said, it's a programming note for everybody, that we're trying to be on the side of civility, because we can just reach more people. Right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I could have said it in other ways, but the reason I quoted him is because it makes it much more dramatic. Maybe I should have used another word, and I could have used another word.
Oh.
But what really struck me about it is the language he was using, that he was choosing to use, was because he saw this as a much more dramatic problem than people often think. And that's all I wanted to communicate.
Yeah. And, Galloway, it's interesting because nobody knew Galloway a couple of years ago. He's kind of burst on to the scene as being, relevant. And one of the reasons that I think that he's relevant is he tackles some fairly big ideas in a very plain spoken way. He's accessible, right? And that's not always the case for professors. Which brings me to Ben. Hello, Ben, professor. You're doing some really interesting stuff, right, in your own, teaching at Emory. So, in addition to helping us with PCI and bringing the great guests that you make possible, share a little bit about what your year's been like and where things are going.
Yeah, a couple of things I might make note of. One project I worked on in the fall was a group building a bot for the Office of Research Administration, and the idea and the challenge was to create a corpus of knowledge that was protected, not ingestible into the cesspool that is the normal LLM structure, public LLMs. And so we had a challenge of taking some 700 documents and artifacts about research activities, and some with some specific information about research projects, and tried to create a private GPT for 300 people who would be the administrators and assistants of administrators for the Office of Research Administration. And so I started out with private GPT and using tools that were resident from Reddit and GitHub that allowed GPTs to be created. But the problem is they're hyper inefficient. And by the way, they were hallucinating from day one, even beyond when restricted to use the corpus that was given to them. Then I moved to Flowwise and using that, and I got permission to go into enterprise cloud activities. So this is going to be a big issue going forward. We tend to look at the single giant pool, cesspool that is the giant LLMs that we use, but really most of us are more interested, especially from an enterprise standpoint, healthcare and others, that we need walled gardens of knowledge. And I think the architectures going forward are going to be more interesting when we're dealing with separate walled gardens that are cooperative under certain rules of cooperating knowledge bases. And I think that is going to be the more interesting element, rather than just trying to ingest everything or permit training data used. So I did a project, and I've put a set of videos into the chat that might explain our project, what we did with well, some 700 artifacts to give a GPT that would serve that large community on guidance and pathways for their activity. And I think it's exemplary of the kind of thing. It also teaches the lesson that the majority of your effort that we used to have in building our systems was in preparing the data, synchronizing it, and curating the data. And by the way, in this realm, that's the same story. The majority of the effort is in doing that. It took 5 weeks to do the project using Azure OpenAI over time with the student team, and then the dev day that OpenAI had came on, and the next day, literally that Tuesday, I went and used the custom GPT, and 30 minutes built almost the same thing with the toolkits that were available from OpenAI, and ingested and protected my own knowledge assets in doing so. So I think a lot of things are changing quite quickly. And so I think that might be of interest to the group as we see going forward, look at some pattern of accelerations. I wanted also to, I'm working on a variety of other projects, but I wanted to bring along one of my best friends for over 40 years now, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld from Yale, who I'm very proud of for his work through the years with CEO College and CEO Summit. Also, his work with the Ukrainian government, not on behalf of the Ukrainian government, on behalf of humanity, and dealing with the U.S. related to Ukraine as well. But he also speaks truth to power all the time on so many different dimensions, and I'm very proud to have him as a close friend for over 40 years since Harvard, since we worked together at Harvard with Shoshana and others whom some of you know as well. But I'd like him to talk a few minutes. And the third debate in 2016, when the Republican debate happened, and Voldemort, or 45, or he who will not be named, mentioned that Jeff said something about Carly Fiorina being one of the worst CEOs, and then Carly responding about Jeff being just a Clintonite and so forth. I was connected with him at the time, and his first comment to me when the debate was going on was he wished his mother was around to hear that. She would have been very proud that he had a voice in public politics. But then about 5 minutes later, he commented, "Should I raise my rates?"
There you go. I'll tell you what, if this was one of the guest speakers, Jeff, right, you just got the longest story-filled introduction that anybody got the whole year, all right? So we're delighted to have you with us.
Well, and thanks, Kevin. I realize you only have 5 minutes left, and Ben's wonderful introduction said about everything I could say. So I really don't want to consume more than my share of your precious time. I would point out to Coco, who talked about the value of learning from wise elders. Everybody on this call looks very young to me, Coco. I don't know, maybe it's my eyes or something, but I consider this a call of wunderkinds. But Coco is right with all the Biden bashing that, Benjamin Franklin was 86 years old when he came up with the grand compromise that pulled this nation together. And I think if you sort of take a look at Konrad Adenauer, he was 94 and nobody wanted him to retire when he brought Germany back together in the aftermath of the horrors of World War II. And there's a lot to be said for wisdom, but I consider, Coco, this to be a young crowd. In fact, Mark just modeled that for us by showing his youthful speech. But in defense of Mark, I think he just wanted to make sure that Elon Musk would understand what we had to say on this call in case he got it. So that was just a translation for that for Musk. But thank you, Ben. Yeah, we pulled together CEOs to look at critical issues, and many times have gotten involved in the presidential transition or other topics on immigration reform or gun safety or environmental issues or racial justice or gender parity and things like that. But getting involved on the political front is what's led to more threats and hate mail than ever before, I thought, from the MAGA people, until we ran into Putin, where we've had some pretty serious vandalism. I'm number 5 on his hate list, on his enemies of the Russian Federation. But on this particular topic, the CEOs we pulled together last June, and I would like to invite you all to one during this June. I can't remember, early first week of June. I'll send out the dates through Ben to all of you and to you, Kevin. Is pulling CEOs together to take a look at technological crossroads. Last June, believe it or not, at our December summit, which we just had last week, but a year ago last week, we introduced to that community and to myself ChatGPT, and who would have thought with Sam Altman and all how it exploded. It was a parlor game then, and how it's exploded, of course, for the disruptive effect you just said. So we took a look at AI in the spring with many of your friends, Vince Cerf and others, trying to chart Gordon Bell from then to now, where we've gotten. And it was fascinating to take a look at the commercialization with Steven Spielberg with us and Bob Iger of Disney and the CEOs of Coca-Cola, a whole host of places. And we intend to return to that this spring, not to look at AI, but to look at what nobody on the planet knows better than this group. And again, I said I wouldn't talk too long, but in terms of where we got it right and where we got it wrong, you talk about Shoshana Zuboff or Sherry Turkle, or the snake oil salesman book that's across the board, digital economy. Of course, Shoshana's. This was though my favorite back when Ben and I were back at the Evo Harvard Business School.
Ithiel Basala Pool.
Only you know that, and
It's in my collection.
Well, so and all these things, I'd like to take a look at where we got it right and where we got it wrong. But anyhow, I said I wouldn't go on long, but I'm so honored to be on the shadows, on the coattails of this crowd of actual creators.
Yeah. See that little section of wall that goes all the way around? That's the library. It goes all the way around. All right. When we moved our family a while back, they said, oh, that was like, moving the two of you was like moving a family of 6 because of the number of books that you own, Mr. Clark.
Good for you.
All right.
Sometimes analog is still of value.
It is. And I'll just say that, when you're following all the threads of the things that we've been discussing, I'm reminded, going back to Aristotle, that he said that, a good story, a narrative, right, at the end is surprising and inevitable, right? And, everything about this year has been surprising, but at the end of the day, I think it was inevitable, right? And I think that the, year ahead is going to be similarly full of surprises, but I'm not sure that as we get through it, that it will be anything but inevitable. So Jeff, it was a pleasure meeting you. We look forward to all the invitations that you're going to share. And Ben, thanks for bringing Jeff to the table. All right. Did I miss anyone? Let me just see if there's anyone that I don't think we heard from Ron Suarez. Ron, are you there? You want to give us some thoughts as we wrap up the year?
Marguerite, can you?
We can hear you.
Press the safe driving mode.
You're driving. Okay.
No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Sure.
Oh, okay. I am a paraplegic, so it's hard for me to easily press buttons on things.
Just stay on voice.
I did post a link in the chat. We've rebranded our website, ipcpc.org. We are a platform cooperative looking to restore the internet as a public commons, as NSFNet had it before the privatization in the early 90s. And I'm a 73-year-old paraplegic. I can't do this by myself. So that's why it's a platform cooperative, so that the people who become teachers, and I really welcome, anybody in this wonderful group to participate and help to take a leadership role in our website, because I don't intend to do it by myself.
All right. Well, if you have the pointer in our chat, we'd be delighted to have it. And if you can't provide it now, you'll get it to Schneider Alfonso. Schneider will put his contact information in the chat, and he'll be glad to. We'll share it with our.
It is in the chat.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Internet Public Commons Platform Cooperative, IPCPC.org.
Outstanding. Well, Ron, thanks for sharing that with us. We'll look at that as we end the year and into the new year. Casey, do you have thoughts to share with the community as we wrap up 2023?
I think it's a great platform for the PCI community, and I'm very excited that we get so many responses to our invitations. The calendar was easy to fill up this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kudos to everybody who's been involved, and your voices are heard by this community, and that's I feel like that's kind of rare in the majority of communities like this. So I think this is a great opportunity for everybody, and I really thank you all for being a part of it and making it as successful as it has been. So I'm really looking forward to the coming year and seeing what your voices have to provide.
Absolutely. Schneider, your thoughts as we close out the year. Thanks, Casey.
Yeah. First of all, thanks to all the present for being so supportive with PCI, with every single call, and from being here. We are very looking forward to the next year for the experiment with the new timing, to see if maybe we can bring in more people and we can share all these insights with more people. I think that as a wrap up, also to share with you this year for PCI, I think this year I would define it as the first steps of a big evolution of what PCI is. And we will understand that on 2024. We will share with you this week, we hope to share actually an email with all of you regarding, let's say, like big news of what's coming from PCI. And we, of course, will expect or wait for your opinions or your comments in case of that, and in case of you have it. And with that, I will go to my second point, and is feel free at any time to send any feedback or comment regarding how we can improve the way we run these meetings, or the way even your perception about PCI. Just feel free to send it to my email. I will just put it here on the chat box, and we will just discuss on how we can evolve the organization. And one of the things that is coming very big for PCI next year, and that I would ask in case that you have something to support, is Yasha, which is the executive chair, and myself, we will be in January in Davos in the World Economic Forum meeting. So if you have anybody or if you recommend to anybody that will be in the meeting that we should meet actually, or that we should talk to, just feel free also to reach out to me and send Schneider. I would like to introduce both of you to X-organization, X-persons. You will, let's say, get more information about more context on that after the email that you will receive this week. But I'm just, let's say, giving a heads up that's coming up for the organization. Okay, so yeah, thank you all, and enjoy the holidays with your loved ones.
And thanks to every one of you that's both on the call today, listening later, right? You have our thanks for being a member of the PCI community. We're grateful, and we're looking forward to talking to you in the new year. All the best for the celebrations of the season. Yes, Alfonso?
Yeah, no, I just missed something that I consider is very important. Is now one of the big things that we did this year is that now on the PCI website, you can actually check all the documents, recordings from the digital corporations meetings. You can check all the links that we have done, or the papers we have written for the Think 7 in Germany and in the Japan presidency, and it's called Policy and Research of PCI. So if it was before just in our folders, like internal folders, now it's available for all of you to check it out, okay? So you can go and check it out whenever you want. And yeah, thanks, that's it.
All right, very good. As I was saying, all the best for the celebrations of this evening, and we look forward to seeing you in 2024. And everything you do, be intentional. Cheers.
Thanks, folks.